Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we are cutting through all the noise, all the trends and the so-called hacks, to get to the real heart of attraction. We're going to build a science-backed framework for making a genuine connection with your crush, starting from a solid foundation and building our way up to a real, authentic bond. Let's dive in.
First things first, we got to talk about Riz. It's the big word on the internet right now for charisma or charm. But, as this Reddit user OneCellCat puts it so perfectly, the ultimate power move isn't some clever line or a trendy trick. It's kindness. It's just being genuine. And that's our starting point today. Forget about putting on a performance and let's focus on the person.
Because here's the thing. Before you can attract anyone else, that connection has to start with yourself, right? True, lasting attraction isn't about faking it till you make it. It's about building from a place of authenticity. This is the bedrock for everything else we're going to talk about. I know. It sounds almost too simple, doesn't it? But according to our Reddit source, this is the most powerful advice there is. Don't quiet down when you're excited. Don't pretend to like things you don't. The most magnetic, attractive thing you can possibly be is just you. Unapologetically you. Because, let's be real, if a connection is going to last, it has to be with the real you. And a huge part of being yourself is allowing yourself to be vulnerable. Now, what's really fascinating here is how this completely reframes what vulnerability even is. Research from Durkee Park shows it's not weakness at all. In fact, it's the key to intimacy. It's about being open enough to share, and that's what creates the emotional safety you need for a deep connection to actually begin.
Okay, so once you have that authentic foundation in place, we can start building the first level of our attraction pyramid, nonverbal communication. This is all about the science of what you're communicating before you even open your mouth. So let's get a little scientific for a second, but stick with me. The first term is proxemics. A study from the International Journal for Multidisciplinary Research explains that it's basically the study of personal space. That physical distance between you and another person sends this powerful subconscious message about your relationship. And check this out. This is where it gets really interesting. Psychology Today points out that simply closing that physical gap between you and your crush can actually increase how much they like you. It's something called the mere exposure effect. The more familiar someone becomes, even just by being physically closer, the more we tend to like them. So finding a reason to sit a little bit nearer can make a huge difference. All right, the second piece of this silent language puzzle is something called kinesics. This is all about how you move, your gestures, your posture, and this is the big one, your eye contact. Every little movement you make is sending a signal. And when it comes to kinesics, eye contact is the absolute superpower. According to Psychology Today, holding someone's gaze does incredible things. It can literally spark feelings of liking and even love. It signals that the feeling is mutual, and get this, it actually activates the reward center of the brain. So yeah, holding their gaze isn't just some romantic movie trope. It's a neurologically powerful way to connect. Okay, let's climb to the next level of our pyramid. Once you've got a handle on the silent language, it's time to actually create shared experiences. Because the context where you spend time together can seriously amplify any feelings of attraction.
So let me ask you a question, and it's kind of a weird one. Can a thrilling, maybe even slightly scary experience make someone fall for you? Well, the science says, kind of. It's this wild psychological quirk called misattribution of arousal. Basically, our brains get confused. We feel our heart racing and our breathing get faster from an exciting or scary situation, and we mistakenly blame that feeling on being attracted to the person we're with. It's a mix-up in the brain. The classic experiment that proved this is the famous bridge study. So researchers had men cross two different bridges. One was totally safe and stable. The other was this high, wobbly suspension bridge that definitely got the heart pumping. An attractive researcher met them in the middle of whichever bridge they crossed. And here's the kicker. The men who crossed this scary bridge were way more likely to call her later. They mistook their fear for attraction. So what's the takeaway? Maybe go see a horror movie or ride a roller coaster together? And now we've reached the peak of our attraction pyramid. You've laid a foundation of authenticity. You've used nonverbal cues and shared experiences to create that initial spark. Now it's time to fan that spark into a real flame with meaningful conversation. Just look at this chart from Very Well Mind. It shows the massive difference between small talk and deep talk. Small talk is safe, right? It's a shield. But meaningful conversation, that requires you to be vulnerable. That's what takes you from being acquaintances to being something much, much more.
That's how you build a real emotional bond. So, how do you actually do it? Well, Very Well Mind lays out these 4 pretty simple steps. First, ask open-ended questions, stuff that can't be answered with just a yes or no. Then, you go first. Share something about yourself to make them feel safe. Third, actually listen. Don't just wait for your turn to talk. Listen with curiosity. And finally, empathize. Make them feel seen and understood. That right there is how you forge a real connection. So, we have covered a ton of ground, haven't we? We went all the way from your internal mindset to the nitty-gritty of conversation. Let's put it all together in one simple, easy-to-remember framework. And here it is, the attraction pyramid. See how it all fits together? It all starts with that foundation, being your authentic, vulnerable self. From there, you build on it with a silent language of your body and your use of space. Then you amplify that spark by creating exciting shared moments. And finally, you lock it all in at the peak with deep, meaningful connection. Each level builds right on top of the last one.
And of course, once you've made that connection, the journey is really just beginning. The next layer to understanding relationships involves stuff like attachment styles, whether you're secure, anxious, or avoidant. That's a whole other level of emotional dynamics, but it's where you go after that initial bond is formed. And that brings us right back to the most important point of all this. We've talked about a lot of science and strategy, but it all comes back to that foundation. So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. If being your genuine self is the real key, what's one small, authentic thing you can do today to connect with someone?